With its rich, red, fertile earth, Kericho is a prime location for commercial farming. Kericho County is located in the highlands that lie west of the Rift Valley in Kenya, and it is also one of the top locations for tea production in the world. It is therefore the location of some of the world's best known tea companies like Unilever, Lipton, James Finley's, and Williamson's Fine Tea. These foreign and multinational companies continue to generate millions of dollars in profit from their farms in Kericho County, Kenya. But the original owners of the land continue to wallow in poverty. So, how is this even possible in the year 2022? Welcome to the Sankofa Pan-African series. Please support us through Patreon and by buying me coffee so we can continue to bring you this series. Subscribe if you have not yet done so. And please turn on your notification buttons so you know when we have new episodes. Of course, share our videos with all your contacts. Now, the news that a Kenyan group is dragging the UK government before the European Court of Human Rights is a welcome development. But honestly, please, unless something drastic happens, let's not hold our breath. What is happening in Kericho County in Kenya is just one example of the lingering effects of colonial era land grabs. Between 1895 and 1963, tens of thousands of acres of land owned by two clans, the Kipsigis and the Talai of Kericho in Kenya, were brutally taken using the British Army. The land was then given by the British colonizers to white farmers. The two clans, the Kipsigis and the Talai, were brutally evicted to make way for tea plantations that were set up by white settlers. Currently, tea plantations continue to thrive in the area, providing tea to Europeans while making millions for the multinational companies that operate in the region. Yet, hundreds of thousands of Kenyans, some of who are living witnesses to the brutal way in which they were evicted from their ancestral land, now live as squatters in shacks made out of tin. They were forcefully moved by the British Army under instructions from the colonial administration from their own rich land to arid, disease-prone, so-called native reserves. As I said earlier, the land grab began in the 20th century, but accelerated from the 1920s. People who were dispossessed of their land report that during the brutal eviction, homes were burnt down, women were raped, men beaten, and victims were tortured and some were detained. The people ejected were then sent to the hostile steep Gwasi Hills located in the Suba district on the banks of Lake Victoria, which was part of the Ruma National Park. Because of its location, that is because of the location of the place where they were relocated, the victims of eviction did not only have to contend with lack of water and malaria infestation and other diseases, but they had to find ways to survive being attacked by wildlife, such as lions, reptiles, crocodiles, and so on. They could not easily farm the dense forest and could not keep domestic animals. So some of them died as a result of starvation and malnutrition. In 1962, some of the evicted people were allowed to return to their homeland. But by then, they were put into holding areas and forced to live in pens, like pens made for animals, tiny hovels which barely measured 50 feet by 100 feet. By this time, they had no means of finding work or land and tools to grow crops like their ancestors had done. This is sadly still the condition under which most survivors of the eviction and their descendants live. Again, like I said earlier, let's not hold our breath that Kenya will get any fair deal from the European Court. The UN had condemned the British land grab in Kenya, but that has not forced Britain to make amends. One of the excuses which other enslavers like them and colonizers use when arguing against reparation is that it all happened so long ago. However, in this instance, there are about 115,000 people who are direct living victims of the forced removal from their ancestral lands by the British. So what's the excuse? The demands of the Kipsigis and Talai are actually most reasonable, and I'll share some of them here. They demand that the ancestral land ought to have been surrendered to the affected communities at independence, that the British government pays reparation to the direct victims of the historical injustices, and issue an apology over the various forms of injustice inflicted against the Kipsigis and the Talai communities. They demand that the government of Kenya officially acknowledges that land was unlawfully taken from the Kipsigis and Talai. They demand that the British government and multinational tea companies construct for the Kipsigis and Talai entities entities such as schools, hospitals, etc., and provide services such as water and electricity to alleviate their suffering. They also demand that the British government and the multinationals pay victims profits for the loss of use of their land from 1902. They ask for rates and rents for land occupied by the multinationals, tea firms, to be enhanced in order to benefit the county governments of Kericho and Bomet and the national government. They also demand that the British multinational companies should lease land from the Kericho and Bomet county governments at commercial rates. They're not asking for too much at all. They also ask that when land expires, land that have expired, land whose leases have expired, should not be renewed without the concurrence of the county government where the land is domiciled. So only a greedy, selfish person would actually see anything wrong with these demands. There is a full list of their demand, and which can be found on the website of the Kericho County. And sadly, even as we speak, the land continues to be occupied by various British and multinational tea corporations. Thanks for watching. Please support us through Patreon and by buying me coffee so we can continue to bring you this series. Subscribe if you've not yet done so. And please turn on your notification buttons. Don't forget to share our videos with all your contacts. And keep those comments coming.